Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahushai, Brakati Yahweh, Brakati Yahweh, Ba'ashim Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Chakodash. The blessings to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone Truth Well. Salutations to the whole field like out there. Akim to Zadakim that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. On the pre-Shimon, this week's topic is going to be entitled Understanding Foreign Aid in the USAID situation. And that's what's most recent in the news. I pray Yahweh Ba'ashim Yahushai guides this lesson with understanding and clarity. So, USAID, what is it? It's a government agency that's responsible for foreign aid, one of many, okay, and it recently came out after an audit done by the DOGE team, Department of Government Efficiency, which is not an official United States department, all right? To become a United States official department, you have to get authorized by Congress. However, when it comes to foreign affairs, and that's what USAID handles, that's under the executive branch, which is the president. So Donald Trump has given Elon Musk the permission on a read-only basis, not write, a read-only basis, okay, of government spending. And that's, I don't know why the big uproar is happening, because he's been saying that for months, okay? That's what he ran on, that we're going to see where our money is going, where the tax dollars are going, and so on and so forth. Lo and behold, okay, they found out that a lot of that money was a lot of wasteful spending. A lot of it was money laundering. I mean, if you have millions of dollars going into how fast a fucking shrimp could run on a treadmill, okay, then money is being laundered, and they're finding that out, okay? These different veterans, and even so much as to foreign aid, and I'm going to speak on that too, to oppositions, those of the United States. Now, with these little different NGOs, these different non-government organizations, which are they truly non-government organizations if they're being funded by the government anyways? But they would use these NGOs, they'll fund them, okay, fund adversaries for regime change operations, to stir up conflict, all right, CIA operations, okay, because they would fund both sides and use as a proxy, okay, to occupy a region or as a license to get in that region. And conspiracy theorists have been saying this for a while, and it wasn't conspiracy. You could literally, if you did some good due diligence, you'll find documentation proving these things, you know. And those people that was getting a good amount of bread from it, okay, they bag been fucked up. A lot of these different media outlets, like Politico, for example, being funded by the USAID, and so they shut all that shit down. They shut all that shit down. The employees was out there protesting with the Democrats, okay, saying we're going to go in, but the doors were shut. They locked that shit. And I was looking at an Arizona senator on the floor. He was speaking, and one thing I noticed in terms of the countries that he mentioned that are opposite to the United States, like Yemen, he mentioned Syria, he mentioned funding to Gaza. These are all adversarial to Israel, okay, because Israel, America is beholden to Israel. It doesn't matter what president you have, Democrat, Republican, they all work in America's interest. That's going to be that way until this place is destroyed, because that's what's mentioned in the book of Ezekiel, the 38th chapter. So no one's going to go against Israel, right? I don't know why people are surprised that Donald Trump, these MAGA people, oh, why are we sending aid to Israel? Donald Trump, pro-Zionist, man, okay? In fact, he had, I believe his name was Wilbur Ross, a Rothschild agent, okay, in his cabinet, also pro-Israel. So it's better to have Donald Trump in there in terms of prophecy, because he's not on the fence about it, like the Democrats have to be, like, oh, we have to also be pro-Palestinian. No, when he's in there, it's all Israel, it's fuck Iran, it's fuck our enemies. If you're not Israel and America first, it's to hell with you, and that's great for prophecy. But it's coming out now that they funded a lot of these different, whether it be Al-Qaeda, all this stuff has been on the item line, and what's raised the big red flag is it will say, okay, something is going to that, like a percentage of it is going to that, then and a huge percent of it is going to quote unquote governance. So people are saying, wait a minute, it's not going to the actual cause, it's going to the bureaucracy of those regions, the leaders of those regions. Now the book of Luke chapter 12 verse 2 reads, it says, for there is nothing covered that shall not be revealed, neither hid that shall not be known. Right, so everything is going to come to light. This scripture was my go-to scripture all of 2024. It's looking like it's going to be that way of 2025, all right? And what we're seeing right now is like in chess, they call it pawn sacrifice. You know, like Magneto said in X-Men, the pawns go first. So a lot of these political leaders, all right, that were doing the bidding, guess what? Now it's time to cut you. Now it's time to bring a lot of dirt out on you. And that's why I said in the previous lesson that the acting Treasury Secretary, that when Elon asked, look, we want to do an audit, he said no, because that's going to impeach on civilians' bank statements and such. I said that has to be bullshit, because he's not asking for civilians, he's asking for what the government is spending on. And boom, you know, a lot of shit came out, you know, in terms of wasteful spending. So that fucks up the bag of a lot of people. You know, a lot of people that was using that shit to launder money. You know, and this is what we said too with Biden in Ukraine. We need billions of dollars to Ukraine, billions of dollars to Ukraine. And then Zelensky comes out and said, we don't know where the $100 billion went. Laundering. Money laundering, okay? Well, Hunter said the big man has to get his cut. Now, Donald Trump, he's being seen as a savior. With Donald Trump, I'm just very straight line. So far, based on his action, he acts as an American nationalist and an Israeli big-time supporter. All right, so there are things that he's doing that will benefit the so-called American, because that's how you're going to build trust, right? Now, this is the book of 2 Corinthians 11 and 13. It says, "For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into the apostles of Yahushua, Hamashiach, and no marvel. For Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light." Right, so whether it's left wing or right wing, it's still the same bird. Now, pursuant to the book of Matthew, all right, there are going to be infightings. You know, the house of Esau, all right? Because look, if you go through our history, even when you go back to the Tower of Babel, every single New World Order regime has never always been in unison. If they were, they would have never fell. Whether it's the Assyrian Empire, the Babylonian Empire, the Roman Empire, all these, Israel, okay, all these, when we were in power, all these different major New World Order systems going back, fucking Alexander when he died, there's always going to be some sort of turmoil, infighting, or what have you. They'll have a greater purpose. They'll be in line on a greater purpose, but to say that there's no disputes, no, there's disputes, all right? That you know what, the best I could compare it is like you have all these different Israelite groups that believe that Yahushua is a so-called black man, Yahushua is going to come back, that we're the people of the Lord. But do we all agree on everything? No, we do not. In fact, we go back and forth with each other. So the same shit that happens on the right hand also has happened on the left hand. But we know how the Most High is going to play things out on a macro level. But in the interim, in the meantime, we're going to speculate based on certain things, the micro level, right, of what the hell is truly going on. You know? I'm about to have to swerve out. There was an accident over there. So, yeah, so foreign aid. Let's get back to foreign aid. What is it used for? Like I just mentioned, they fund these different NGOs for regime change operations, all right? Now, I think what's happening is they look back and say, okay, well, a lot of these shit we could cut, because let's say we was trying to topple something in Mongolia and they literally found something like that. Well, it's not really doing anything now, right? We could scrap that operation, you know. But people were still making money off that shit. They found out that a lot of these people weren't even showing up to offices, getting paid lump sums of cash. You know what I'm saying? Now, this is the book of Psalm 64 and 1. It says, actually, let me just jump down to 8. Jump down to 8. I'll start at 6. Fuck it. Psalm 64 and 1. It says, to the chief musician, a psalm of David. It said, hear my voice, O Yahweh, in my prayer. Preserve my life from fear of the enemy. Right, the so-called white man. And this is going into the secret councils, okay? There are many different elite families, different infrastructures, different think tanks out there that are trying to come against the nation of Israel, all right? The true people of the Lord, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. It says, hide me from the secret council of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, right? And they have these different secret councils, these different think tanks. And there's levels to it, okay? There are levels to it. Like I said, when you want to control or infiltrate, you don't you don't buy out the entire room of 1,000, okay? Because you have a room of okay. So you have a room in terms of clearance of information, a room of 10,000, a room of 1,000, a room of 500, a room of 100, a room of 10, a room of 5, 3, you know, maybe 2 top guys. So you don't buy out the entire room of 1,000. All you gotta do is buy out the guy that controls a room of 1,000. Okay, so there's different clearance of information. So I say that to say this: you'll have people in the CIA, people in the FBI, all right, that don't know anything about what the fuck we're talking about. You could tell them, you know, that this is control and the Edomite. They wouldn't know, because you don't tell every single body. It's just like, you know, you just tell them just enough. So some of these people that you see out there, it could actually be new information to them, that this stuff is coming out, that we funded these different oppositions and shit. So when you see some of these reactions in the Senate and Congress, some can actually be genuine, some could be like, oh, we've been know that, you know, and the elites just sit back in the dark. It says, hide me from the secret counsel of the wicked, from the insurrection of the workers of iniquity, who whet their tongues like a sword and bend their bows to shoot their arrows, even bitter words. Right, so whet means sharpen, and what the bitter words is these different lies and slanders that they come up with, and these different think tanks that they use to try to destroy our people, manipulate the minds of the people, run psychological operations on the people to sway one way, and all these different things. You know, with all this information coming out, that, you know, USAID funded Chinese research in Wuhan concerning the C-19 virus, that creates great distrust in the government. Okay, so when we read about scriptures like the book of 2nd Ezra, all right, the 15th chapter, where it says they shall not regard their kings or priests, all right, they shall not regard their kings and priests. It doesn't say priests, but it goes into their government officials, and we see that's going to be a lot easier to accomplish when people aren't really trusting their government. They're not trusting the news media, because the news media has been caught in lies. They're seeing that their government tax dollars has been, and even though Trump is getting a lot of favor from a lot of Americans, not just the right but also Democrats, okay, but guess what? He doesn't have full trust of the entire people. Neither side will accomplish that, all right? Because, you know, you always have to have the opposition. But again, that great distrust, that distrust of what is the government really saying is there. So when all hell breaks loose, okay, and they're telling you it's this, you might hear something different on a conspiracy channel as to what's really going on. They're not going to be trusting those shit, man. People are going to be acting in their own best interest to protect their families, because they're going to say the government has lied so many times. We've seen so many different false flags and psyops, you see. So that's good for that purpose in terms of prophecy. It says that they may shoot in secret at the perfect Israel, the real Israelites, the Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commute of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? Right, so these elites, and again, there's different levels of elites, man. Elite families that we don't never know about, man. You know what I'm saying? These people are stowed away, but we do have major elite people that we do see, okay? Whether it's royal families that have long money, Rothschilds and these sorts of stuff, it doesn't matter. They're going to be the first batch of slaves, okay? It says, they search out iniquities, they accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them and the heart is deep. Right, so they accomplish a diligent search. You know what I'm saying? They play 4D chess, but it doesn't matter. Who gives a fuck? Who really gives a fuck? Because the Most High is playing 5D chess. At the end of the day, they're all pawns of the Heavenly Father, and they all move into the beat and tune of the Most High. They might think they're super wise or super ahead of the game, but man, at the end of the day, you're just another pawn in the Most High's chessboard, man. Okay, Trump, all pawns. And you know what the elites do? Namely, them so-called Jews do through lobbies like AIPAC and what have you, is they'll fund both sides. You know, so they don't necessarily need to determine the outcome of an election, because elections are state controlled, they're not federal control. You can have elections, let these people vote or what have you, but what does it matter when both sides, we have leverage on both sides? So whether it be Kamala or whether it be Trump, they're not going to act outside the interest of Israel. In fact, that surprised a lot of MAGA people that Trump was putting a lot of pro-Zionist, pro-Israel people in his cabinet. I think the only person he didn't pick that was pro-Israel was a guy by the name of Matt Gaetz as his attorney general. But guess what? The moment he picked Matt Gaetz, all of a sudden, a fucking sex scandal came out with an underage woman or whatever, which wasn't even, they didn't have to prove it. You know what I'm saying? They just said it, and then the Supreme Court was like, oh, that violates the ethics or whatever. He didn't get picked. But I believe I said in a lesson, or speaking with brothers, that I believe Matt Gaetz was a faint pick, and it was just a head pump fake, because immediately after Pam Bondi was appointed Attorney General. So people wanted to see Pam Bondi and Kash Patel in Trump's administration to see if they're going to go after the so-called deep state, which, like I said, pawn sacrifice. They could put a lot of people in jail. The same way they came after Governor Cuomo, for example, and brought out an allegation to him and took him out of power. They could do things like that. Again, these people are pawns, but we could see a lot of pawn sacrifices. We could see a lot of people in positions of power have federal investigations launched against them. This is all great stuff, man. This is all awesome stuff. There's never a dull moment with this dude in office, man. It says, but the Most High shall shoot at them with an arrow. And by the way, concerning foreign aid, all them foreign aid that these different countries that are going to get cut, that are adversarial to Israel, guess what? The aid is still going to keep going to Israel. The aid is still going to keep going to Egypt. Okay? So they're just going to restructure it. Like they said, Mark Rubio is going to get in there and have it, be a State Department thing. But all they're going to do is shift the aid around. They're still going to be financing and backing who they want to back, but Israel is going to have more involvement in that. So a lot of these nations that have made agreements with the United States and Israel are finding out, man, they fuck us. So particular aid going to the UN and NATO, all that shit. Hey, man, we're going to do a lot of cutting. Okay? What does that mean for you as a so-called, what does that mean for America, rather? They're trying to increase, they're trying to cut government spending, all right, have a surplus and attack that deficit, that trade deficit. Which, when it comes to trade, there's always going to be a trade deficit with the United States, because the United States has to give liquidity to the world as the world reserve, right? The world reserve currency is the United States dollar. To give liquidity to the world, you have to print more of it. So the United States are going to always typically lose on trade with these nations in terms of imports. But guess what? That money that goes back to these nations, they bring it right back into the United States in terms of investing in stocks and U.S. Treasury. So that's sort of the cycle that goes there. Trade wars. Like I said with that last lesson, Canada, United States capitulated. I believe China will do the same. You just look at the data. I mean, like I said, less than 15% of the United States GDP comes from imports. A lot of it, the rest of it is all domestic. When it comes to countries like Canada and the United States, Canada and Mexico, Canada accounts for 1.5% of the United States GDP. Mexico is 1.2%, so they can't really do nothing to the United States. That's how come they had to capitulate. They can't affect anything with inflation, with the whole tariff thing, because that's not just how inflation works. Inflation is an increase of the money supply. So unless Mexico, Canada, or China, these different places, has the United States printing press, you can't cause inflation. Reading on, verse 8, it says, so they shall make their own tongues to fall upon themselves. And a lot of this information that we get concerning what's going on with the elites, a lot of this information, them coming against each other, it's just really them bringing out information on them. You know what I'm saying? Bringing out dirt on them. And you also have a lot of these conspiratorial journalists. They bring out a lot of information. A lot of them also are Edomites. So that's His kingdom just toppling upon itself, and we as the prophets, you know, we jump on these lessons and filter everything to the best of our ability through the scriptures, and then we speculate as men as what we think is going to happen in the micro, in the short term. We know in the long term, in the macro, the overall things of how things are going to play out. But you know, we use these journalists, you know, I do, kind of just like the book of Isaiah 28 says, here a little, there a little, line upon line. You know, you can't just go to one conspiracy guy. You can't just listen just to Alex Jones, for example, or just to Ryan Dawson or Whitney Webb or Jake Morfonio. You gotta listen to all of them a little bit, because they're gonna go off for little things, but you're always gonna have information to glean. So I jump around for sure. You know, it says, "But the Most High shall shoot at them with an arrow. Suddenly shall they be wounded." Right, that arrow being the nuclear missiles. I'm saying these nations are going to come together and shoot missiles on America and Israel, and we're seeing that's the way things are leading, just based off how things are going right now. Right, it says, "So shall they make their own tongues to fall upon themselves." It says, "All that see them shall flee away." So yeah, that's pretty much it on that, man. All right, this is the time that we're heading in, and it's gonna be spectacular, wonderful times. With that, I'm gonna give all praises to Yahweh, Bahashim Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rachak Wadash, the belongs to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, which rule well. Salutations to the hopeful elect out there, you Akim to Zadakim, that do this thing in the utmost truth and sincerity. Shalom.